What's up everybody, and welcome to the Minute channel, and today we're going to be talking about my top 10 games of this year. It's been a really tough year, but thankfully gaming has been really fun and it's been a lot of really good games to talk about, so I'm really excited to talk about these games. It's just been a really good year for gaming. So let's go ahead and start with number 10, and it's going to be Final Fantasy VII the Remake. So whenever I first got Final Fantasy VII, I was invaded by nostalgia because I originally played the original one, obviously on the PlayStation 1, but I was really excited to see what they were going to do. A little skeptical as well. I didn't think that they were maybe going to pull it off with the gameplay and everything, but thankfully I was wrong. The gameplay was really good. I like how they did this combination between the hack and slash style with as well as having the RPG aspects of it, which is a really good balance of them. A lot of the aspects will really work for me overall. Story wise, it's really interesting because this is not what they promised. This is Final Fantasy the Remake should be renamed as something else. No spoilers or anything, but this is more like a sequel, a continuation to the story, and I really like the way that they really able to transition from the original fantasy to that graphical. This game is really impressive. This really does a lot of good stuff when it comes to the obviously translated what it originally was polygons on the PlayStation 2 or the PlayStation 1 to what it looks like now, and it's phenomenal. Looking at all those characters that I fell in love with so many years ago now on full HD and everything was fantastic. This is really good game. I'm very excited to see how they're gonna do. Of course, I'm still a little skeptical when it comes to what is gonna happen with story details and everything, but overall I'm still very excited and really happy for how this game turns out. And yes, it was a great game. Moving on to number 9 is gonna be Resident Evil 3. So Resident Evil 3 originally was one of the games that I wasn't actually too excited for, because Resident Evil 3 is my least favorite Resident Evil out of all the Resident Evil games that I played in my life, which is pretty much all of them. This one has always been kind of like my least favorite. The story just is not good, and the gameplay hasn't really been fantastic. So I was really skeptical again how this was gonna turn out. I thought it was gonna be okay gameplay wise. The gameplay is always been good in the new Resident Evil remakes and everything, but I was really excited to see what they were going to do with story details and everything like that, and thankfully it wasn't disappointing at all. This game definitely did a lot of really fun stuff when it comes to the actual gameplay, but also when it comes to the storytelling and everything. This game was extremely short. I think in fact was one of the shortest Resident Evil games I ever played, finishing it in about 6 hours. However, everything that I did and I really enjoyed. These games always had a lot of replay value when it comes to, you know, just going over and over again, unlocking more weapons, unlocking more customs, that kind of stuff. And this game really excels at that. The gameplay again is really fun. The graphics is fantastic. I think it's one of the best things on the Resident Evil so far. Going to the City of Raccoon City one more time. I don't know how many times we've been there, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed quite a bit of that. Fighting Nemesis was kind of like one of the things that I was really excited for, and thankfully it did not disappoint. It was really fun, and it definitely is just one of the fun games that I had this year. Moving up to number 8 is Miles Morales Spider-Man for the PS5. This game was one of those games that I was really excited because PlayStation 4 Marvel Spider-Man was one of my favorite games last year, so I was really excited to see what they were going to do. Now this one, in some aspects, a lot of people were skeptical because of the length of the game. They knew this wasn't gonna be a full-length game. They knew this was gonna be a much shorter game, and a lot of people were worried that it wasn't gonna be as good as the original Spider-Man. However, it was totally the opposite. This game had a lot of good stuff. Obviously you're still in New York City, in the same area and everything, so the map was exactly similar to the same, but the characters and the cast and everything, and when it comes to the story, was brand new and everything. Miles Morales is a really good character, and I was really excited to see how this interpretation of it was going to turn out, and it actually turned out really good overall. Again, when it comes to the character, with all the different casts that you meet, whether it's the mom or the best friends or the uncle, there's just a different cast of characters that you meet, and the whole story just carries you along with everything that you're getting through, and I was thankfully really happy to see how it turned out. The gameplay is fantastic. Miles Morales has a different class of abilities from Peter Parker, and all these abilities allow for more gameplay and for more variation with that gameplay and everything, and definitely this game excelled at that. Graphically, this game is really impressive, even the PlayStation 4, which I played originally, and then when I got my PlayStation 5 I played it again there, and it's definitely impressive. Even the PS4, this is one of those games when people talk about games that don't look good or that kind of stuff, you can definitely point up this game and say, yeah, this is a really good game running on the PlayStation 4. Definitely a really awesome game. Obviously the length of this game was much shorter than the other games, but I still a lot of things to do. There's a lot of side quests and all things to accomplish and everything. This game was really fun. Moving up next, I have Persona 5 Royal in number 7. So Persona 5 has always, or Persona series has always been one of my favorite series. In fact, obviously I have the whole channel dedicated to that. So when I heard that they were going to be remaking Persona 5 or remastering it with additional content and everything, I was really excited to see how this was going to turn out. I owe Persona 5 Royal to my channel grew because of this game. It helped me grow so much, and in fact I would actually like to do like a special mention on that because it really helped me so much develop this channel and everything. Overall, Persona 5 Royal did something really interesting when it comes to remastering a game, because they added so much to it, which is 30 hours of additional gameplay with a lot of different aspects to it, new characters, new missions, and all a couple different stuff here, and I really like the way that they did the stuff because it really added from some new gameplay. Whether the new stuff was good or not is up to debate here. I personally thought it was really fantastic and really good stuff. In that sense, the only thing that I really didn't like is some aspects that I didn't like in the original game were still there, and I felt like they could have improved a little bit more on that aspect instead of just adding new stuff. But at the end of the day, I really enjoyed this game. It was really good. It's definitely one of the best RPGs this year, and again, I just have such a really good time with this game, and I you know, every time that I go through it and play it again, I'm like, yeah, I really like this game quite a bit. But moving on next at number 6, we have Xenoblade Chronicles. Now, this is the definitive edition that came out this year. I never actually played Xenoblade Chronicles in my life. This is my first time playing through it, and as I was thinking I'm playing through it, I was really getting just caught up with the plot and the characters. This game really excels at getting you hooked up with the game when it comes to the story. There's so many different aspects. Every time that you go through it, there's another plot twist and another additional stuff that they tell you. There's just so many different aspects when it comes to the different characters that you meet, the cast, the gameplay itself. There's just so many stuff that they really did so well. Now, that being said, the gameplay wasn't super good for me. I thought it was a little on the weird side. I don't know, there's some aspects that I didn't enjoy too much on the gameplay, but at the same time, I really enjoyed the game itself. I enjoyed the characters. The story was phenomenal. I was tearing up at the end. It's definitely a really interesting game. I really like it, and I'm looking forward to playing the next one. I don't know if they're gonna do a remaster or something like that for the other games, but I'm really excited to see what comes next from here. But moving up next, I have number 5, The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this is going to be a controversial game. I know there's a lot of stuff, people that didn't like the game, all the different aspects. There's a lot of stuff that I liked about the game. I think that the game excels in a lot of different aspects. It's definitely one of the best looking games in the PS4. It's definitely one of the most interesting games when it comes to storytelling. Last of Us Part 2 takes place a few years after the original The Last of Us, following out the steps of Ellie as you meet up with new characters, and of course you get a whole lot of and brand new story with new characters as well. The stories merge and converge at some point, and obviously there's a lot of stuff like here. Overall, the story is extremely emotional. It's a really more personal story going through all this. By the end of the story, I was literally tearing up. I was really just so exhausted, and I just had so much thinking on everything. Whether the story or not is good, that's really up to debate here. I personally really like the story, but at the same time there are some aspects that I didn't. I felt like the way that they carried certain plot lines on the storyline didn't really make sense, didn't really add too much. At the same time, I really felt like there was too much going on the shock value that it really didn't impact as much as they did, especially because this game was leaked a few days before it came out, so I was unfortunately leaked for that. So when that happened, when some moments happened, the impact was there, but also it made me just more frustrated than it was like anything else. But definitely there's a lot of good stuff in it. The gameplay itself is fantastic. It really improves a lot from the original game, and they did some interesting stuff when it comes to more action and all these different stuff. It definitely improved a whole lot, and I look forward to see what Naughty Dog does from here, because when it comes to the story itself and the gameplay, it's just phenomenal. It's definitely a really good game, really extremely well polished. The music is fantastic. There's just a lot of good aspects in this game that really made me think, wow, this is a great game. Although again, there are some issues that I still have some issues with, but particularly the game itself is pretty good. Moving up next at my number 4 is 13 Sentinels. Now this game, it's really funny to me because this game has been in my radar for years. In fact, it's been a long time since I heard about this game back in Japan, and for some time we didn't know whether this game was actually gonna come out to America. First of all, this game is a more niche series, much niche studio that it made this game, and I wasn't personally thinking that this was gonna do very well in the West because of the kind of story it is. But however, 13 Sentinels takes place in many different interesting things to think about, but this one takes place about 13 different characters, and it really handles the 13 different storylines as they converge to each other in different timelines, and it does involve a lot of things like time travel and sci-fi. This game itself is a love letter to 90s and 80s sci-fi when it comes to things like Terminator and Back to the Future and that kind of stuff. It really has a lot of inspirations from that kind of environment and movies and everything, and the game itself is fantastic. There's just so many different stuff that you do with the story itself, how you unveil and kind of just get to know these characters and the storylines. It's really fantastic. I really enjoyed that a lot. The gameplay itself is not for everybody, and I do want to mention this game, although I really enjoy the gameplay, I can see how a lot of people will not enjoy the gameplay. This gameplay is more of a tactical RPG when you're actually controlling different mechs, but you actually don't see that too much. It's just more in the smaller scale than what you will imagine, and this game is just much simpler in that aspect, but at the same time it can be complicated, and a lot of different aspects it can be pretty easy, I think, the game, but I really enjoyed the storyline itself and the characters. That's really what did it for me here. Moving up to number 3, I have Cyberpunk 2077. Now I feel like this one is going to be really controversial because I enjoyed it as well, but some people are like, well, you actually like The Last of Us, so you know, hold your horses here. When I played this game, I played this on a PS5, so I didn't experience many of the bugs that a lot of people have. I know a lot of people experience a lot of stuff. However, in my playthrough, I didn't really experience much of that. I had a really smooth experience when it comes to the gameplay itself and pretty much my entire 50 hours on this game, so I do want to make sure straight right. So Cyberpunk 2077 was a game that carried a lot of hype when it got started. I personally was hyped, but I wasn't really on the hype train with everybody else. I wasn't like, oh my god, this is gonna be the game of the year or anything like that. My mind, I was thinking, personally, this game is gonna do good. I'm looking forward to a game like this because I love games like Fallout, like Elder Scrolls, and this game follows along with those kind of games when it comes to the gameplay and everything like that. If you have played games like again, like Fallout 4 or even games like The Witcher, you know what you're going in for. You know the kind of gameplay you're gonna get. You know the kind of game that this is gonna be, and these games really excels in a lot of this different stuff. Even among the games that I just mentioned, storytelling in this game is really good. There's a lot of times where I was hanging out with the characters and then something happens in the story and everything. The game really wants to make a point and really one that shows you something about what's going on in the storyline. How does it feel to live in a world where people are wearing cybernetics? Where's the soul? Where's like the part about what makes people human in a world where things are no longer too human, you know? And there's a lot of it does ask a lot of philosophical questions. At the same time, the game can be really fun. The gameplay itself is fantastic when it comes to fighting all this. You can pick a katana and just chop off a bunch of people. You can treat this as a shooter. There's just the different aspects that the game does really well, and I really enjoyed my experience with it. Overall, the gameplay was really fantastic. The story itself was phenomenal. I had a lot of a good time just with the cast of characters. Some of the characters can be total dirtbags the entirety of the game. I used to really enjoy their experience with them. I used to enjoy having that experience with them. It was a really good game. Moving on next, I have a number 2, Yakuza Like a Dragon. It's really funny that this game is in my list because this game was not in my radar at all. In fact, this game was not even a game that I was gonna pick up, period. It was a game that I may have played in a few years. However, I was hanging out and I was seeing some of my friends play this game, and I was like, you know what, this game looks actually pretty good. I really want to play it. So I had some extra time. I finished all the games that I wanted to play for the game of the year. I was working on this particular video here, and I was like, you know what, I have enough time to play one more game. So I went and bought Yakuza Like a Dragon, and the first day I dropped 8 hours straight up just playing through it. The second day I dropped another 5, and so on. I really just swallowed this entire game. I really just, the entire experience soaked in me. Yakuza Like a Dragon takes place in Japan, even though it is the 7th installment in the series, and it does follow a lot of the storylines from the previous games. This is a good game for newcomers. This is a brand new cast. This is a brand new main character. Ichiban is one of those characters, or the main character, who is more focusing on the friendship and honor, and this, like, he really respects the Yakuza life and everything like that. He wants to be that kind of person, and throughout the entirety of the story, as a lot of the plot twists unravel, the story just develops in different ways. You can see how his character is tested as things are happening, and I feel like this storyline is really interesting because I didn't know what to expect from this game, and this game, it made me both laugh at times and cry at times. This game is interesting how the writer or the writing team in this game can be so good, because in some aspects this game can be really heart-wrenching. There's a lot of sad moments. There's a lot of stuff where you're like, wow, this is really messed up. But then the next 10 minutes or when maybe an hour later, you're laughing because there is a guy in a diaper just crying and stuff. It's really interesting how the dynamic between those things, the fun moments and the really sad moments, can handle. That can easily be sloppy, that can easily be messed up, but somehow the team made it so that this game works so well when it comes to those aspects. They handle so well the dynamic between the sad and the good and everything, and I really love the experience of the game. I really love the gameplay. This is a turn-based RPG. This is really interesting because the series has already been known for a specific, more like beat 'em up style kind of gameplay. However, this game just focuses more on the RPG style and everything, and it really works so well for me. In fact, I went and played the other Yakuza games, and it just didn't really work for me because I really just love the turn-based RPG. However, there are some issues in balancing in this game, particularly when it comes to the leveling and everything. However, overall the game is fantastic. And my number one game of the year is Ghost of Tsushima. This game is a game that actually, out of all the games, this is one game that I was waiting for. I was so excited for this. I kept looking at news, I kept trying to look for articles. This is one of the games that I was more excited, more interesting, but at the same time was really skeptical about this game. I was really worried that this game wasn't going to work for me. I was really worried that this game was going to be too much like other games. However, once I started playing this game, I fell in love with it. The cast of characters is phenomenal. The way they're able to handle this tale, which is, by the way, based on real events in Japan, and how you kind of get to know these different characters that you meet. All of them have fantastic storylines that you go through. The gameplay itself is so good. If you ever wanted to play a samurai game in a fantasy setting or anything like that, they excel at this. The gameplay is fantastic. There's just so many different aspects that I wish that I could just go through, because the gameplay is just so good that you can switch between, being this assassin, you can hide in the shadows, you can just go guns blazing with your katana and just kill everything. There's just so many different aspects that this game really excels at. The story itself is phenomenal. At the end the game, I didn't even know how this was gonna end, because there are so many twists and turns, and like how the very end just is heart-wrenching. The final boss character, it was just had me crying, because there was just so many aspects that I was like, wow, this game just really did a lot of really good stuff. Overall, this is my game of the year. This is the game that I enjoyed the most. However, all of these games were phenomenal. All of these games have really good stuff that I liked. This top 10 was really hard for me. There was a lot of games that are really so close to each other. So many games that I was like, yeah, all of these games are so good. I struggle so much kind of putting them on a list and everything, which is almost like, sure, you can think that this is a list of my favorite games, but also think of these games like all of these games are winners. All of these games are fantastic. I really enjoyed all of these games, but I do have had some special mentions, some games that I also want to talk about. So let me go ahead and jump into this. Tokyo Mirage Sessions was a game that came out this year as well, in January. This is a game that was teased as a combination between Shin Megami Tensei, who also makes the Persona games, as well as the Fire Emblem games. These turned out to be something completely different, an RPG that focuses on idols, and it's a really interesting combination of different stuff. It's a phenomenal game, and deeply encourage you guys to play it. This game definitely deserves to be in the list somewhere. It just didn't click with me as good as the other 10 games, but it's definitely a really good game. Also, Persona 5 Scramble, released this year in Japan. You probably haven't played it, but I did play this game. However, I didn't put it on my list because I want to replay it again in Japanese once I finish it and everything. I'm sorry, in English. So I'm really excited to talk about more about this game, but I'm really trying to avoid, talking about story and gameplay and everything, because I don't really want to spoil people. But it's definitely a really good game, and it's probably gonna be in the Game of the Years for next year. Moving on next is Persona 4 Golden. Now this game is really good. It came out a few years ago. I wanted to do a special mention because it was released on PC and a lot of people played it, that are brand new people. So I do want to acknowledge this game is fantastic and is really phenomenal. It's just a game that I have talked about plenty in my channel, and honestly, this game is just a great game. And my final game that I want to do special mentions to is Demon's Souls. I have not finished this game. This game is going to take me much longer to finish. I'm not really good at the Souls games. I always take my time with them, also because I died a lot, so it just takes me some time to get to them. But it's a fantastic game. The graphics are phenomenal. This is definitely next gen when it comes to everything that I played so far. It's definitely a really good game. I just definitely haven't played it or anything, so I finished it, so I really can't say much about that, but it's definitely a good game as well. Anyway, that is pretty much all of these games. I thank you so much for sitting through this long video. I think this is one of the longest videos that I've done in some time, but I really wanted to talk about all the games this year. I wanted to talk about each and every single one of them. Can I give them a little mention, because all the games are winners. All the games that I played this year in some capacity I really enjoyed, and most of them again were phenomenal games. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you guys next year.